When we first meet someone who lights us up, it's easy to live in the dream of what could be. We imagine the adventure, the conversations, the effortless connection. It's beautiful, intoxicating, and entirely necessary, because every great relationship starts with a dream. But the truth is, not all dreams are meant to stay dreams. Some are meant to be built. The difference between a fantasy and a reality isn't love. It's effort. It's intention. It's the small, invisible choices we make every day when the glow fades and life asks, "Do you still want this?" Because at some point, every relationship stops being about chemistry and starts being about character. It's easy to love someone's highlight reel. It's much harder to love their rough drafts, the moments of doubt, the insecurities, the times when life knocks them down and they don't bounce back quickly. But that's where real love begins, not in perfection, but in patience. Not in magic, but in mutual growth. A relationship that goes from dreams to reality is one where two people decide every day to build something together, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's boring. Even when it's hard, because real relationships aren't found. They're forged, and here's the paradox. The more real it becomes, the more magical it feels. Not because it's flawless, but because it's yours. Built with your hands, shaped by your truth, carried by your commitment. So if you're in the dream stage right now, enjoy it, but don't stop there. Ask the deeper question, is this a person I want to build reality with? And if you're already building, remember this. The foundation is not built in grand gestures, but in quiet loyalty. It's not about never falling. It's about always choosing to get back up together. Dreams start things. Reality proves them. When we first meet someone who sparks something inside us, it's like the world gets a little bit brighter. We replay the conversations in our head, we smile at their texts like we're in some kind of movie, and we find ourselves imagining the future before the present has even had time to breathe. It's not foolish, it's human. We're dreamers by nature, especially when it comes to love, and in the early stages everything feels possible. You haven't hit any of life's hard edges yet. It's smooth, it's easy, it's exciting. But here's the catch most people never prepare for. That dream, as beautiful as it is, has an expiration date if we don't start feeding it with something real. Because the truth is, dreams ignite relationships, but they don't sustain them. That spark in the beginning, it's a promise of what could be, not a guarantee of what will be. And the mistake so many people make is assuming that the magic in the early days is enough to carry the weight of an actual relationship. They think if it feels good now, it must be right. They assume if someone lights them up, then they're the one. But butterflies are not a blueprint. They're just a signal, a moment, an emotional opening. What happens next is what matters. A dream is a start. But a dream left alone is just that, something that exists only in your mind. Something you can fall in love with, obsess over, even grieve. But it's not real. Not yet. You can imagine how you'll laugh together, how they'll hold you when you're down, how they'll stand by you when things fall apart. But none of that's been tested. You don't yet know how they handle disappointment. You don't know how they react when life asks something inconvenient of them. You haven't seen their habits, their fears, their emotional bruises, and they haven't seen yours. That's the gap between dream and reality. And if we don't acknowledge that gap, we get stuck in something that feels good but goes nowhere. We get addicted to the fantasy version of someone, not because they lied to us, but because we didn't take the time to meet who they really are. We rushed to write the story before we learned the character. Now, I get it. That initial high is intoxicating. It's easy to get swept up in the possibility of it all, but real love isn't about the high. It's about what happens when the high fades, and it will fade. That's not pessimism, that's reality. The question isn't if the sparkle will wear off. The question is, what's left when it does, because what's left is where the relationship begins. You see, people who chase the dream endlessly are usually the ones who walk away the moment reality shows up. They say things like, "It doesn't feel the same anymore," or "the spark is gone." without ever asking if they did anything to feed it. As if chemistry is supposed to sustain itself. As if love is supposed to maintain its temperature without anyone tending the fire. But anyone who's built something real, something meaningful, will tell you, the spark isn't supposed to last forever. It's supposed to start something. It's the pilot light. You have to build the rest, and building takes presence, it takes patience, it takes stepping out of the dream and into the daily choice to connect. That means asking the uncomfortable questions. That means noticing the little moments when you pull away emotionally and having the courage to step back in. That means recognizing when you're more in love with the idea of someone than the person standing in front of you. And look, there's no shame in dreaming. Dreaming is beautiful, it's romantic. But if all you want is a dream, don't expect a real relationship to come from it. Dreams are the fireworks show. Reality is the candlelight dinner after. It's quieter, less explosive, but it lasts longer. So if you're in that stage where everything feels light and euphoric, enjoy it. Let it fill you. Let it remind you what's possible, but also remind yourself, this is just the beginning. The true test is what comes after, because the dream is the invitation. Reality is where you RSVP. And if you want a relationship that lasts, you have to stop chasing the dream and start learning how to live in what's real. So let's talk about that space between fantasy and reality, because that's where most relationships either evolve or dissolve. And here's the truth most people don't like to hear. The thing that carries a relationship from possibility to partnership isn't love. It's not attraction. It's not even compatibility. It's effort and intention. Effort is the part that doesn't get talked about in movies. Intention is the thing that doesn't show up on social media, but they're the lifeblood of anything real. When you first fall for someone, everything feels effortless, right? You're both giving, you're both showing up, you're both on your best behavior. You want to impress, to connect, to be seen. But what happens when the newness fades? What happens when routine sets in, and the things that once felt easy now ask something deeper of you? That's where effort starts to matter, not grand gestures. Anyone can do those. I'm talking about the quiet, consistent kind of effort. The kind that looks like checking in even when you're busy. The kind that remembers small things not because they're important to you, but because they matter to them. The kind of effort that shows up not just in the good times, but especially when things feel off, when connection slips and your instinct is to pull away, but you lean in instead. And intention is what keeps you aligned. It's what makes you act with care instead of just reacting out of habit. It's deciding that you're going to be someone your partner can feel safe with, not just loved by. It's being mindful of how your actions make them feel and having the humility to course correct when you get it wrong. Here's where people fall into trouble. They think that once love is there, the rest will just take care of itself. But love without effort becomes neglect. Love without intention becomes chaos. And before you know it, you're sitting across from someone you once couldn't go a day without talking to, and now there's silence. Not because the love is gone, but because no one maintained the connection. Think of it like this. Attraction might bring you to the door, but effort and intention are what help you walk through it, stay inside, and actually build something. And it's easy to say, well, if it's meant to be, it should just work. But no, even what's meant to be can fall apart if no one is choosing to build it. Every relationship reaches a point where it stops being automatic. That's not a sign that it's wrong. It's a sign that it's real. You no longer feel butterflies just because they texted you back. You now have to ask yourself, how am I showing up in this? You're not just reacting to chemistry anymore. You're participating in a process, one that demands your time, your awareness, and sometimes your discomfort, because effort isn't always easy. Sometimes effort means saying sorry when you're tired. Sometimes it means making space for their needs when yours aren't being met. And no, it doesn't mean abandoning yourself. But it does mean being awake in the relationship, not sleepwalking through it. Not assuming it will work because it worked once, and intention, that's what keeps the relationship on course when things get complicated, because they will get complicated, you'll misunderstand each other. You'll trigger each other. You'll bring past wounds into present moments without realizing it. And unless you're intentional, those moments will pile up. Resentment will grow, and suddenly you're no longer in a relationship. You're just coexisting.
Effort says, I care enough to keep trying. Intention says, I care enough to do it well.
And the beauty of this is that when both people bring these things, when both of you are committed to not just loving each other, but showing that love through consistent action, you start to create a different kind of relationship.
One that feels stable, one that feels safe, one that doesn't need constant reassurance because the evidence of love is everywhere in how you treat each other. That's when you stop wondering, are we okay? Because you already know.
You've built a rhythm, not a perfect one, but a real one, and real rhythms can handle noise, conflict, even temporary distance, because they were built with care. So if you're asking how to move from fantasy into something lasting, this is the bridge. It's not luck, it's not fate, it's not just finding the right person. It's about two people deciding over and over again to meet each other in the middle and to build something worth staying for. That's how you turn a spark into a flame that actually lasts. Chemistry gets all the credit. It's the thing people chase, the thing they believe will solve everything. We've all heard it. The chemistry was unbelievable. Or we just clicked instantly. And sure, chemistry is exciting. It's what draws us in. It's the invisible thread that pulls two people toward each other. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Chemistry might start the fire, but it's character that keeps it burning. And if you build a relationship on nothing but chemistry, eventually you're going to find yourself in a situation where the thing that once felt electric now feels unstable. Why? Because chemistry doesn't fix incompatibility. It doesn't make someone trustworthy. It doesn't turn someone into a good communicator, a good listener, or a reliable partner. Chemistry is an invitation, but it's not the foundation. That's why relationships that are built purely on attraction often burn bright and then burn out. Because when the initial intensity fades, and it always fades, you're left with the reality of who this person actually is. Not how they made you feel on date 3, but how they behave when they're stressed. How they treat you when they're frustrated, whether or not they show up when it's inconvenient, and this is where character comes in. Character is about consistency. It's about emotional responsibility. It's about how someone navigates discomfort, how they own their impact, and how they grow, or don't, when life holds up a mirror. And no matter how strong the chemistry is, if someone lacks character, the relationship becomes a revolving door of hope and disappointment. You see, we fall for chemistry because it's fast, it's thrilling. It makes us feel seen and special, like this person understands us in a way no one else ever has, but character that reveals itself slowly. And sometimes it reveals truths we don't want to see, truths that don't align with the dream we built in our heads. So we ignore it. We give them the benefit of the doubt. We say, but when it's good, it's really good. As if that somehow justifies all the times it's not. But the people who build lasting love don't just chase the high of chemistry. They pay attention to patterns. They ask hard questions. They look for evidence of integrity, not just charm. They care less about how someone makes them feel on their best day, and more about who that person becomes when things get hard. Because in a long-term relationship, you're not just dating someone's smile or their sense of humor. You're dating their reactions, their values, their level of empathy. You're dating how they handle stress, how they argue, how they repair. That's the stuff that either makes you feel safe or slowly erodes your peace.
And look, I'm not saying chemistry doesn't matter, of course it does, but it's not the most important thing, and if you're smart, you'll stop making it the only thing. Because the kind of relationship that lasts, the kind that supports you, challenges you, and grows with you, isn't just based on how magnetic the beginning felt. It's based on how strong the foundation becomes when real life starts testing it. So next time you feel that spark with someone, great, enjoy it, but also pause, look deeper, ask yourself, who are they when they're not trying to impress me? How do they respond when they don't get their way? Do they show up in the hard moments, or do they disappear? Are they kind not just when things are smooth, but when they're uncomfortable or vulnerable? Because those answers will tell you more about your future than any first date ever will. And it goes both ways. Your own character matters just as much. If you want something real, you have to be real. If you want depth, you have to be willing to bring it. You can't expect someone to meet you in a place of honesty and vulnerability if you're still performing. The chemistry might get their attention, but your character is what earns their respect and ultimately their trust. So the next time you find yourself swept up in the rush of new attraction, remember, chemistry will get you through the door. Character is what builds the home. Here's the thing about real love, it's not always glamorous. It's not always that firework moment when the world seems to align. It's not always the moment that looks perfect on Instagram or in a rom-com. Real love shows up in the rough drafts. It shows up when life doesn't look as pretty, when things get messy, when your partner's flaws are front and center. And that's where real connection begins, not in perfection, but in the willingness to embrace imperfection. We all have this idealized version of love in our heads, shaped by movies, books, or even our own dreams. We think love will be effortless, that our partner will somehow always know exactly what we need, that the relationship will always be smooth and easy. But if you're lucky enough to be in a long-term relationship, you know that's just not how it works. The truth is, love is often about showing up when it's not convenient. It's about staying connected even when the shine fades, when you're no longer in the honeymoon phase, and when the newness starts to wear off. The truth is, you're going to see parts of your partner that aren't always easy to love. You're going to see their bad habits, their insecurities, their stress responses, their fears, and guess what? They're going to see the same in you, and that's okay. What makes a relationship strong isn't avoiding these imperfections or pretending they don't exist, it's the ability to lean into them together. Real love doesn't run from flaws. It finds a way to accept them, and even better, it allows both people to grow through them. When you embrace imperfection, you stop expecting the other person to be everything you imagined, and instead, you start appreciating them for exactly who they are in the moment. And let's talk about growth. Real love is about supporting each other through transformation, not just staying the same. Because if you're both growing in the same direction, you'll be able to navigate the ups and downs together. Growth doesn't always look graceful. It doesn't always come with applause or applause. Worthy moments, growth is hard, it's uncomfortable. Sometimes it feels like 2 steps forward, 1 step back. But if you're both committed to it, and if you're both open to changing, it becomes the foundation for something truly strong. The key here is that growth requires patience. Patience with your partner, and patience with yourself. Because let's be real, sometimes you'll fail, sometimes you'll say the wrong thing, sometimes you'll hurt each other, even without meaning to, and that's where real love shows up, not in the absence of conflict or mistakes, but in the ability to repair. To acknowledge the harm, to own your part in it, and to rebuild trust. The ability to show up for each other, even after you've both been at your worst, is what turns imperfection into something beautiful. So when things aren't going perfectly, don't panic. Don't assume the relationship is over. Don't convince yourself that love should be a constant high. Instead, recognize that this is where the real work begins. Love doesn't grow in the good times alone. It's in those low moments, when you're tired, when you're frustrated, when life is messy, that you discover the true depth of your connection. It's in those moments where you learn whether your relationship can stand the test of time, or if it was just a fleeting spark. Real love means choosing to stay even when things aren't perfect. It means sitting through uncomfortable conversations, doing the hard work of forgiveness, and showing up when the other person needs you most, even if you're not feeling it yourself. It's about being there for the messy parts, the parts you didn't see coming when you first fell in love. And let's not forget that sometimes it's not just about accepting the other person's flaws, but about accepting your own. We're all imperfect. We all have moments where we act out of insecurity or fear. We all make mistakes, and if you're constantly expecting perfection from your partner, you'll never feel like the relationship is enough. But when you both embrace your imperfections, you stop blaming each other for what's wrong and start working together on what's right. You start to understand that love isn't about finding someone who's perfect. It's about finding someone you're willing to grow and improve with. The moment you let go of the fantasy of perfection, you open yourself up to something far deeper. Real connection isn't built on perfection. It's built on the ability to show up as you are, flaws and all, and still choose each other. It's built on seeing the messiness and deciding, I'm in this with you, no matter what, because at the end of the day, that's the kind of love that lasts. It's not the love that's always pretty. It's not the love that's always easy, but it's the love that's real. And that's the kind of love worth fighting for. Here's the thing that most people miss when they think about love. Relationships don't just happen. They're not something you stumble into and wait for it to magically work. Relationships are built, and the strongest ones are built with intention, effort, and care. They're not found, they're forged. Now, it's easy to get caught up in the idea that love is something you should just feel. We've all heard people say, you'll just know when you meet the right person. And sure, there's some truth in that. Chemistry, attraction, those first sparks. But if that's all you're relying on, if you're waiting for some grand romantic destiny to guide you through, you're setting yourself up for disappointment. Because what really matters is what happens after you've met that person. It's what you do with the connection you've found. That's where the real work begins. Think about it for a second. Every successful relationship you've seen, every partnership that has withstood the test of time has been built. And I'm not talking about big, dramatic gestures or sweeping, romantic acts. I'm talking about the day-to-day stuff, the decisions you make, the small but meaningful ways you show up for each other. Because in the end, it's not the grand moments that define your relationship. It's the countless little moments, the ones that no one else sees, that truly shape the bond you share. The truth is, most relationships aren't found in some fairy tale setting. They're not the stuff of fantasy where everything falls perfectly into place. Relationships are the result of two people actively deciding to be there for each other, to put in the time and the work, even when it's not glamorous. They're forged in the way you navigate challenges together, in the way you communicate when things get tough, in the way you both make room for each other to grow as individuals while also building something together. A relationship that lasts doesn't rely on the excitement of the initial attraction or the early stage of infatuation. That's not the foundation. The foundation is built when you both make the conscious choice to meet each other halfway. It's about choosing each other in those quieter moments, in those moments when you're not feeling the spark as strongly, and yet you still decide that it's worth it. It's about learning each other's rhythms, understanding each other's needs, and figuring out how to coexist in a way that nurtures both of you. When you start to realize that a relationship is something you have to build, you start asking yourself better questions. You stop asking, does this person make me feel good right now? And start asking,
Am I willing to show up even when things are hard? Am I ready to give this the time and care it needs to grow? It's not about if things feel easy all the time. It's about whether or not you're both willing to roll up your sleeves and put in the work, even when the easy moments aren't there. The best relationships aren't based on finding someone who perfectly fits your idea of who they should be. They're built on mutual growth. They're built on both people acknowledging their flaws, their past, their fears, and still choosing to grow together. You learn about each other and you adjust. You build trust. You build understanding. You build a partnership that withstands time and change. It's easy to be swept up in the excitement of a new relationship, but when you rely solely on the initial magic, you're missing the point. That magic is just the beginning. It's the spark, the invitation. What matters more is how the relationship develops over time, how both of you show up and contribute to making it strong. No one's going to sweep you off your feet in a way that guarantees you'll be happy for the rest of your life. You have to do the work. You have to be there for the slow burn. It's not glamorous and sometimes it's frustrating. It's the way you talk to each other at 2 a.m. when you're both exhausted, but you're still working through something that matters. It's the way you support each other when life throws curveballs. It's the way you lean in when things are hard instead of leaning out. It's about being there for each other through the highs and lows, understanding that every phase, every challenge, every quiet moment counts as much as the loud, passionate ones. And yes, there will be times when you wonder, is this really worth it? You'll question your patience, your effort, and even the relationship itself. But those are the moments when you realize building something real, something lasting, isn't supposed to feel like a perfect fairy tale. It's supposed to feel like an evolving journey with peaks and valleys, and with both people continually deciding to keep walking beside each other, no matter what. Building a relationship isn't about finding the perfect partner, it's about becoming the right partner together. It's about creating something from the ground up, brick by brick, day by day. It's about choosing to forge a connection that's solid enough to last, even when the initial excitement fades, because in the end, relationships that are forged are the ones that stand the test of time. They're not based on fantasy. They're based on the reality of two people choosing day after day to keep building. And when you do that, when you both choose to invest in what's real, that's when you start to create something that's not just a fleeting moment of magic, but something that truly lasts. At the heart of every strong relationship lies one fundamental truth. It's about connection. Real connection goes beyond the surface. It's not about how often you text, or how cute your dates are, or whether you both share the same favorite movies. Those things matter, sure. But true connection is what keeps two people close when the spark fades. It's what sustains you when the excitement of the newness wears off, and it's what allows you to still feel like you're in sync even when life gets loud and complicated. The problem, though, is that in our fast-paced world, we often confuse connection with convenience. We mistake the fleeting moments of ease, of things feeling light and effortless, for something deeper, and that's not true connection. That's surface-level comfort. Real connection, the kind that stands the test of time, requires attention. It requires effort, it requires vulnerability, and most of all, it requires intentionality. Now, I know we all want that effortless connection, the kind where you don't have to work hard to communicate, where you're always on the same page, where you can read each other's minds. We dream of that kind of chemistry, and when it happens, it feels amazing. But here's the thing, that's not the norm. Real, deep connection doesn't just happen by accident. It's the product of two people who show up day after day with a commitment to understand each other better, to support each other through growth, and to navigate life's challenges together. Real connection is about creating space for each other. It's not about constantly talking about yourself or waiting for the other person to be the one to initiate every conversation. It's about showing up for each other in ways that make the other person feel heard, seen, and valued. It's about listening without judgment, being present without distraction, and engaging in a way that fosters understanding. It's not about agreeing on everything, but rather being able to respectfully disagree and still feel safe in the relationship. Because true connection is built on trust, and trust is built on respect. One of the biggest challenges people face when it comes to connection is that they often confuse communication with connection. Yes, communication is essential. It's how we express ourselves, how we share what's on our minds, how we express love and affection. But connection goes beyond just words. It's the way you make the other person feel. It's the energy you bring to the relationship. Communication can be words, but connection is the feel of those words and how they land in the other person's heart. It's about showing up not just with your words, but with your presence. You can communicate your feelings, your thoughts, your needs, but if you're not also showing your partner that you get them, that you see them, then communication becomes transactional, not relational. What I'm talking about here is something deeper, the ability to read between the lines. It's noticing when your partner is feeling off even when they don't say anything. It's recognizing that they're holding something in and giving them space to express it without pushing. It's knowing when to challenge them and when to just hold space for them to be who they are. Connection requires emotional intelligence, the ability to tune in not just to what's being said, but to the unspoken cues that tell you where your partner is at emotionally, mentally, and physically. But let's be honest, connection isn't always easy. We all bring our own baggage into relationships, past hurts, fears, insecurities, and sometimes those things get in the way of connection. When you've been hurt before, or when you're afraid of being vulnerable, it's easy to build walls. It's easy to stay guarded and protect yourself, thinking that if you don't let the other person in too much, you won't get hurt again. But that's not the kind of connection that creates lasting bonds. That's the kind of connection that keeps you stuck in a cycle of distance, because it's only when you allow yourself to be vulnerable, when you allow yourself to be seen in your entirety, the good, the bad, and the ugly, that true connection can really thrive. It's about finding the courage to let your guard down, to be open, even when it feels risky. It's about choosing to trust again, even if you've been let down before. It's about showing your partner that they're worth the risk, that you're willing to be vulnerable with them, because you believe that the connection you're building is worth it. And vulnerability, in its purest form, is what makes connection so powerful. It's the foundation of intimacy, the ability to be truly seen and understood, without the need to hide behind a mask or put on a facade. Here's the truth. Real connection means being willing to be uncomfortable. It's being willing to sit with difficult emotions, to confront hard conversations, to face discomfort together. When you can do that, when you can show up and be vulnerable and open, you create something that's much stronger than just getting along with each other. You create a partnership, a true, lasting bond that withstands the ups and downs of life. So when you're thinking about connection in your relationship, ask yourself, are you really connecting or just coexisting? Are you truly showing up for your partner or just waiting for things to feel good again? The real magic happens when both people are willing to lean in and make the choice to connect on a deeper level. And when that happens, everything else falls into place. Because in the end, the strength of your relationship isn't measured by how well you avoid conflict or how often you click. In a perfect moment, it's about the depth of the connection you build, day by day, choice by choice. And that's the kind of connection that lasts a lifetime.